today is in response to a question from Lakson Machoko, and his question is in twofold. Firstly, he wants to know the history of the Mbira, and secondly, he wants to know more about the Nyunga Mbira. For those of you who do not know, this is the most popular type of Mbira in Zimbabwe. It's called the Nare. Some wrongly call it Mbira Dzwadzimu. We'll address that question later. Following closely behind in popularity is this one called the Nyunga. It's now one of the most popular type of Mbira in Zimbabwe. It's taught in schools, it's taught in colleges, teachers' colleges, and everywhere. And it's the type of Mbira that is played by the likes of Hope Masike. It was played by Choniso Maraire. It's played by people like Alexio Kawara, Dana Samkange. It's a very easy instrument. Within 30 minutes of being taught, you'll be able to play something on this Mbira. In 2020, UNESCO named it an intangible cultural heritage instrument, and we're very happy about it. Right now, we've got people coming from as far as Japan, the United States of America, Europe, to come and learn this instrument from Zimbabwe. And if you hear them play, you might think they're Zimbabweans. Some of them don't even speak Shona, but they can sing some of the most popular ancient songs from Zimbabwe. So I think it's an instrument that can bring us foreign currency, just as reggae music is to Jamaica, Afrobeats is to Nigeria, Rumba is to DRC, so is Mbira to Zimbabwe. Historians agree that this instrument originated in the northwestern parts of Africa before the Bantu migration. So it's an instrument that is thousands of years old. Before there was iron, they used to make these tongues from bamboo. And then later on, with the coming in of the Iron Age, they were made out of metal. So there are different types of Mbira. There is the Nare, which I showed you. There's the Nyunga, which I showed you. There's also the Njare, which is one played by Sekuru Kweshe, the late. And there's Matepe. And there are about 7 types of Mbiras in Zimbabwe, which are tuned differently, and but there are some central elements which unite all of them on. So Mbira is found all around Africa, but it's most prominent here in Zimbabwe. That's why even our pop music from Zimbabwe is based on Mbira. I know some youngsters always ask, do we have a genre of our own in Zimbabwe? Yes, we do. If you listen to Thomas Mufumo, Choniso Maraire, all of them, Tukudzi, the Four Brothers, the Bundu Boys, Hope Masike, Tendema Wengeni, Stella Chweshe, and everybody else, there's a central element amongst their music. Whether they play the actual Mbira or not, even if they just play it on guitars, there's a central element. That central element is Mbira rhythms. So our music is basically Mbira-based music. Although we struggle with naming our genres, because at times if somebody plays a sub-genre, he calls it a genre, and it causes a lot of confusion. So that's an issue that really needs to be addressed, so that we have a unified name. The Nyunga was introduced to Zimbabwe by a man called Jege Tapera. Jege Tapera was born in 1905 in Murewa, but he moved to Bulawayo and started working as a factory worker. And he had relatives in Mozambique. So when he visited Mozambique one time, he saw some people playing the kalimba. I don't know what they call it in Mozambique. And it had 13 keys, and he fell in love with the instrument, and he came with it to Zimbabwe. And he worked with researchers at Kwanongoma College, and they improved it, added 2 more keys to make them 15, and tuned it to the Western scale, and added a new resonator. What we call a resonator is this wooden thing which acts like the amplifier. Originally, the resonator for the Mbira was the usual resonators which are used on the Nari and all the other types of Mbira, which is made out of calabash, out of mananga, chimananga cheche, on. So those are the improvements they made, so it became very popular. It's a Mbira instrument that was never used during spiritual ceremonies. That's why it's popular with people who are Christians. So we are going to touch on the issue of spirituality. The first missionaries who came to Zimbabwe, who are the first people to preach Christianity in Zimbabwe, demonized the Mbira simply because it was used during ritual ceremonies. What they failed to understand is that our culture and our spirituality were intertwined. Our spirituality as Zimbabweans before Christianity was holistic, so everything about our lifestyle was spiritual. Cultural norms like the paying of lobola is very spiritual because it was a way of thanking the ancestors of the bride as well as connecting the ancestors of the bride and the ancestors of the groom. So according to our culture, which is a bit similar to the culture of the Israelites, the paying of lobola is the wedding. And that white wedding element that we praise a lot is a Western. It's not even biblical and it's not even part of our culture. So according to our culture, most people are wedding twice. You pay the lobola, which is the first wedding, and then you do the white wedding, which is the second wedding. But anyway, that's an issue for another day, and there's nothing wrong about it. I'm not saying there's anything wrong. I'm just mentioning that lobola is a spiritual act. The paying of lobola is a spiritual act. And the kitchen itself was the temple that we used as Africans. All the biras and all the rituals were done in the kitchen. And even our livestock, its spiritual connotations. You remember there are cows, Zaipirwa Mzimu, and even our day-to-day lives, the way you connect with your family, you pay a spiritual punishment called Kutandabo. So even the spilling of water or beer on the floor was spiritual as well. It was considered you have given water or beer or whatever to the ancestral spirits. During Mbira ceremonies, yes, the Mbira was used, but it was also used for social ceremonies or just for passing time. But during the Mbira rituals, the Mbira was played and there was clapping of hands, there was ululations, there was singing, there was dancing. And according to some of the Mbira gurus that I spoke to, there are some songs that could summon spirits without the Mbira. You just need to sing the song and ancestral spirits will be summoned. So my question is, why was the Mbira alone sidelined of all these instruments, of all these activities? Because right now you find that people still use ngoma in church, the drums, they still use shakers, which are also, they still clap their hands, they still ululate in church, they still sing, they still dance, but just the Mbira alone was sidelined. On Tuesday, the 12th of July 2016, I sat down with Mbira maestro Sekuru Gweshe, and he said that one of the issues that contributed to this problem is that when the first researchers came to Zimbabwe, or those who were researching about the Mbira, they sat down with people who did not have full knowledge of the Mbira or Mbira music, and they told them that there is a Mbira called Mbira Zivadzimu, which is the first Mbira that I showed you. And Sekuru Gweshe told me that that's a very wrong name because our culture was very holistic. Everything was about Wadzimu. Your house, your cows, your cattle, your children, your marriage, everything was about Wadzimu. So there's nothing called Mbira Wadzimu. So that element needs to be corrected. But the problem is it was written in books. And you know that once something is written in books, it becomes law, becomes a curriculum, and it's taught in schools, and it's difficult to change it. And again, 2 years ago, I sat down with Sekuru Chigamba. Sekuru Tude Chigamba is also one expert. He was born in 1930 and he grew up playing the Mbira. And I asked him this question. I said, Sekuru, if I play Lean on Me on Mbira, or if I play No Man No Cry on Mbira, will I be able to summon ancestral spirits? And he said, no, because What summons the ancestral spirits is not the Mbira itself. It's how you play it, it's the song that you sing, it's the environment that you are in, that Mbira environment. It's also about the one who is singing. He has to be in it. So it's not just about the Mbira. There's a book by an author called Paul James Griffiths, and the book is called The Church Fathers on Musical Instruments. I read that book and I was shocked. According to Griffiths, the first churches used to chant hymns. Some of them were called Gregorian chants and other types of chants and other types of hymns. And it was not until the 8th century when the instruments were allowed in church. Before the 8th century, instruments were not allowed at all to be played in church. There was a custom called epiclesis, which was practiced in Western countries, particularly by the Greeks and by the Romans. And that practice is they used to play instruments to summon their spirits or to summon other gods, the gods that they used to pray to before Christianity. They used the organ. They also used to use the harp that was played by King David in the Old Testament. In Israel, in the Western world, it was used to summon their spirits. They used to use the flute, they used the lyre, they used cymbals. And then there was an instrument which is an ancient ancestor of the guitar called the sitar. It was also used. There was one church father known as Isidore, and he believed that God allowed the Jews in the Old Testament to use instruments because they were childish. That's according to him. He said they were childish, so God allowed them to use instruments. So he said as Christians, they were not supposed to use any of those instruments because that would lead them back to Judaism. He didn't want Christians to associate with Judaism. So right now what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a list of quotations by some of the earliest church fathers and see how they condemned the use of instruments in the church. Here we go. Find some of those quotations funny, and one that was very funny to me was a statement made by Bezo the Great. He was a very popular church father at that time, and he said that musicians who played the sitar, that instrument that I talked about, which was an ancient ancestor of the guitar, he said they should be excommunicated from the church. So it reminds me of one time in 1995, I went to Glad Tidings Church in Fakose to play for Brother Sam. I was playing keyboards for Brother Sam. So the musicians, they knew that I was a guitarist, so they asked me to come and play guitar. They were playing the song Tose Drum, me knowing that it's a GT song which is Mbira based. I started playing Mbira guitar, kidon. And you know what, elders from the church, they went and switched off my guitar. And you know, most churches do not have back line, so if you are switched off from the front of house, you won't hear anything. So one of them told me that you were playing Remunyika, you were playing worldly guitar. And I said, no, I was just playing Zimbabwean guitar. Because the country music that you think is holy, which was played by Jimmy Swaggart, is also played in bars in Texas. I was in Texas last time in 2005. You hear it being played in bars. The rock music, soft rock music, which is played by Hillsongs, it's the same music which is played by U2. It's played in beer halls and everywhere. But just because it's being played by white people, you think that everything about it, it's holy, it's coming from God. There's no genre of music that came from heaven. There's no instrument that came from heaven. All instruments were created here, and all types of music were created here. So there's absolutely no reason why the Mbira should be banned. instruments. Like I showed you, even the organ, even the guitars, even the flutes, even the harp that King David used to play was banned from the first church because they were also used during rituals. The same way Mbira was used during rituals. So there's no instrument which is clean in that sense. So I hope I made my point clear. So as I always say, so we're going to close this with a Mbira song. Here we go.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you so much.
Manolio Studio, the harmony of quality and professionalism.